Questions are now the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, our society is based on the rule of law. Parliament enacts legislation. The government, the executive, is responsible for enforcing it and applying it equally to everyone. Last Friday, we learned that the Prime Minister doesn't think he needs Parliament to change the law. In the Nexen case, he said that as long as there are exceptional circumstances, he can continue to approve foreign takeovers even if there's no net benefit to Canada. When did the Prime Minister decide that he could change the law on his own?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Of course, Mr. Speaker, the government is changing its guidelines, not the law itself. We've been very clear on that. We're operating under the law. In terms of the specifics that the Leader of the NDP raises on exceptional circumstances, I think we've been very clear that controlling interest takeovers by foreign governments in the oil sands are extremely unlikely to be approved in the future by this government.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
2 years ago, they agreed with us that those rules need to be clarified and changed, discussed and enacted in Parliament. They no longer need Parliament. He's going to make them up as he goes along. But here's the problem. How are foreign companies supposed to know what those rules are? If it wasn't fair on Friday, how is it fair today? How do you keep making up those rules as you go along? This is Parliament. We make the rules. You enforce them. Apply them.
Order. I'll once again remind colleagues to use the third person when addressing each other, not the second person. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I note with some satisfaction the very positive reaction of markets and, of course, the vast majority of Canadians to the announcements that the government made on Friday. Mr. Speaker, what we have done is this. We have given clarity, the kind of clarity that private investors need. At the same time, we have reserved discretion, and we need discretion to make sure when we're dealing with foreign governments that this government has the capacity to protect the best interests of this country and its citizens.
Ça, c'est de la clarté, sauf circonstances exceptionnelles. Et qu'est-ce que ça veut dire, ça? Ça veut dire ce qu'on décide que ça veut dire le vendredi, ça peut être différent le lundi. Il n'y a rien là. C'est ça, ce gouvernement. C'est d'une arrogance consommée. Le public a le droit d'être consulté. En vertu de l'accord d'investissement, la Chine aurait dorénavant le droit d'acheter des parts dans tout ce qui se concerne les baux pour les réserves dans les Rocheuses et dans l'Ouest canadien. Vous êtes en train de dire qu'ils peuvent donner nos richesses naturelles à une puissance étrangère et le public ne sera même pas écouté.
Bravo. Le Premier ministre.
C'est bien évident que le NPD est désespéré après avoir vu la réaction positive des marchés et de la grande majorité des Canadiens et des Canadiennes. Monsieur le Président, notre position est claire. Le Canada demeurera ouvert aux entreprises, mais cela ne signifie pas que le Canada est à vendre à des gouvernements étrangers.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister keeps repeating that no money has been spent on acquisition, but of course several $100 million have been spent on the F-35 fiasco. It's as if it wasn't real money because the product doesn't exist yet. The reason that it's such a fiasco is they never defined Canada's needs. They never went to public tender. So there's a basic question of public management involved. Are they going to go to public tender and give it to the lowest conforming bidder, yes or no?
Excellent. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I've said repeatedly, the government is following a seven-step process to ensure that Canada will have new fighter aircraft when the Air Force will need those aircraft. In the meantime, Mr. Speaker, for some years, in fact, even under the preceding government, Canada has been involved in the development of new fighter aircraft. Canadian companies based actually in his city have hundreds of millions of dollars of contracts for that work, and this government has no intention of ripping up those contracts. If he does, he can go explain that to the workers of Montreal.
This is the biggest procurement contract for the Air Force since the Second World War. Contrary to every other major military contract where we obtain guarantees for regional economic industrial benefits, there are None here. $0, 0 cents. So they can talk all they want about no money spent on acquisition. The reality is this has been a fiasco and a debacle from day one. Are they going to call an open public process for tendering? Yes or no? Excellent.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, in the development of the F-35, Canada is part of an international consortium in which we compete for various contracts and for contract work. Several Canadian firms, many Canadian firms, some 60 contracts have been signed that involve Canadian companies working on and competing for that work. Much of that in the city of Montreal. If the leader of the NDP doesn't think that means any dollars to the people in Montreal, he can go to those workers and tell them that.